Hello! This week we're interviewing Notes. Yes, Notes! The person who's writing the Memorials trilogy and who is an absolute amazing writer. So, thank you very much, Notes. Welcome. How did you discover Worm?
I saw it recommended online 4 separate times. The first time, I bounced off of it, misunderstanding the opening chapter to presage a work wallowing in that combination of undeserved suffering and hidden superiority that so often defines your novels. The second and third time I didn't see anything to change my opinion. The fourth time, I decided to put a little time into figuring out why it kept being recommended, read the first several arcs, and found much to admire.
Fair enough. The Memorials trilogy is absolutely legendary in the fandom, and it's often described as a companion to canon. What inspired you to start writing Cenotaph?
The author's note for Cenotaph describes the impetus. As best I can recall, someone argued that it would have taken a significant butterfly to put Taylor in the wards. And I, not immune to the lure of someone being wrong on the internet, thought that's not so. 1.1 was written as proof of concept, a demonstration that something as small as a delay in Taylor's explicit rejection of the ward life in her conversation with Armsmaster would do the trick. Again, as best I can recall, some poster or collage of poster reactions concluded that she would have to end up in the wards now, and only good things could come of this change. That was so clearly and staggeringly wrong that I went out and wrote 1.2, 1.5 by way of showing a limit case of how things can always get much worse, and b, she could still end up in a position to go anywhere. Which is where Taylor is placed at the end of 1.5, having suffered as much as I thought would be believable, and then some I thought wouldn't be, with plausible entree into most of the BB organizations, or the chance to go independent.
What was your favorite part of Worm?
The Leviathan fight is a startling shift in gears, fundamentally changes readers' expectations, and is executed with confidence and effect. There's better prose and characterization elsewhere in the work, but that sequence has the best unity, where everything comes together to greatest effect.
Fair enough. I've mentioned the Memorials trilogy before in my videos, and even tried to analyze a chapter or two. There's a majorly dense amount of detail packed into each chapter, and there's about 100 small hints hidden away, or at least that's what it feels like. How do you write like that? Lots of drafts and rewrites, planning and preparation?
Planning and preparation have varied. Cenotaph was plotted only one arc at a time up through arc 5, when I started planning the ending. Wake was very tightly plotted in advance. Not always to its advantage. Consider the rotating placement of the interludes, so as to have different storylines and threats interwoven. Legacy has been somewhere in between, writing so that the passage of time is felt tends to drive one towards vignettes, and it's an interesting challenge to make the plot cohere when the scenes are more loosely coupled. I believe Gene Wolfe defined the goal best. A great story is one that can be read with pleasure by a cultivated reader and reread with increasing pleasure. That requires that a story entertain on the superficial level, but equally requires that there be more and richer to found as one looks deeper.
Wow. That puts things into perspective. What was your favorite thing to write?
The interludes are always interesting. It's difficult to show the reader things a first-person viewpoint does not see, as Taylor so often does not, and the occasional change of viewpoint is a welcome change of pace. It's usually also a chance to work on some technical challenge that would feel artificial if shoehorned into Taylor's point of view. Of the pieces from the primary point of view, that discussion atop the hospital in Wake was perhaps the most interesting. Making the various layers work in harmony was intricate, and it's always a challenge to arrange matters so that the resolution is as unexpected, before the fact, as afterwards it is inevitable.
Your writing always seems to conjure such vivid pictures, yet it manages not to feel too flowery either. How do you strike that balance? Any tips?
Read what you write aloud. There are other ways to force oneself to read what was written, rather than what was intended, but this is the best for that, and has the additional virtue of forcing attention to flow, emphasis, pausing, and pace.
What's your favorite fanfiction and why?
My favorites shift with time. The work that had my focused interest immediately prior to Worm was the fanfic Victory at Ostagar. Like many of the works I admire, Like Worm itself, it takes a genre and its conventions and then takes them seriously. By this I do not intend deconstruction. Deconstruction I would call an argument against the idea that there is such a thing as a genre, or indeed a unitary work, by highlighting internal contradictions and uncertainties. Rather, I intend a work which is an argument for genre, a world, a plot, one which recognizes the tensions caused by those inevitable uncertainties and contradictions, justifies its resolution of those tensions, and above all else entertains as it does so. Victory at Ostagar sets forth a world that is feudal not just on the surface, and for that it held my interest.
Final thoughts? Any advice?
To improve writing, or any skill, I recommend repeated cycles of analysis and imitation. To those who have read my work, profound thanks. It is a daily joy to give pleasure in the same coin I have so often received.
Thank you very much, Notes. It's been a pleasure. And I'll see you guys next week.